Jeannine Luby. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is my second podcast tonight, so I'm raring to go.
Second of the day. Jeez. I actually booked myself back to back in like a week or so. I'm like, do I want to do that?
Well, I have to say, you have me here at 9 o'clock. I'm like, damn, I go to bed at 10. Is he
Is this
crazy?
late? We'll wrap it up. I'll keep it to an hour. We'll wrap things up quick.
No, no. Hey, I could talk about myself forever, so I'm good.
Well, that's good. As you know, Jeannine is a comedian. She's a podcaster and my favorite laughter yoga leader, and we'll get into all of that. But what I like is like you're already talkative. There's nothing worse than you get on a podcast and the guest doesn't speak, and it's like you're dragging stuff out of them.
Oh, yeah.
The worst. I'm sure you've experienced it before.
You know what? It's funny. I've only a couple times, thankfully, but it's funny because it's the ones sometimes that I am really looking forward to. I'm like, oh, she's going to have so much to say. And then I'm like, well, tell me more about blah, blah, blah. And then, yeah, it was a really cool experience. I enjoyed it. Great. Cool.
That happened to me kind of recently. I was talking to a musician. A lot of these out of the 218, 19 episodes that I've done, I think like 98% have been musicians. So I'm trying to this whole thing has always been trying to be like a platform for entertainment and arts and things like that. I just kind of gravitated towards music because my background is a lot in that over the years. But I had a musician and she had a new album coming out. And I'm like, I really don't know you, but the name of this album is this. And I feel like that has a meaning behind it. She's like, yeah. And I'm like, do you want to elaborate? And I think she was it was probably a long day. She had just evacuated from LA, maybe the week or two prior to that. So she was kind of in a weird headspace. So I'm not knocking her for that, but I was just like, I'm giving you the softball. Kind of hit it for me, will you please?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, yeah, she could have been tired, but yeah, you're right. It is a little bit harder because you don't want to sound like an idiot and ask the same question again. So it's like,
Right.
well, how about a little bit more?
And I'm sure I've done that before because I'm an idiot. And we'll start talking, and then I'll be like, answer this question again. And she's like, oh, I just said that back in the first 5 minutes, but it is what it is.
We all have our moments. It's all good.
Well, I do these late at night. So it's like I keep saying that I should do these early in the day because I'm obviously much more energetic. I didn't just work all day and then go from work to my kids' baseball program and whatever else it may be. But yeah, so it's 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, Tuesday night.
How about it? But these are the things we do for the love of the game, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, somebody's got to do it, and we need these voices out there.
Yeah. So I'm glad you reached out. I think you said Sarah Picorni had mentioned my name
Yes,
or something
she
like that.
had just posted it on her Facebook. And I'm all about through the years, I tell people anyone who ever says no to interviews or whatever, I'm like, you always got to say yes. I mean,
Yeah.
I will always do that. So when she posted something like check you out, that you were looking, I think something like you were looking for new folks to have on your show,
Yeah.
I was like, yes, please. And I think I did it instantly, within minutes. And I told her, and she's like, oh, that's so awesome. I was thinking of you when I posted it. I'm like, well, cool. Cause I was on top of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'm always trying to get like I said, it's arts and entertainment, and I love comedians. I wish I got out to see them more. As much as I love music, I always say that I would probably, if I had to choose between the two, like a live show versus a comedy show, I'd probably go with comedy because if you have the right comedian, you can laugh for an hour straight.
Yeah.
Versus seeing a band play. I mean, I love music. I love going to live shows, but it's just different. I cry at shows. I cry at live shows these days.
Oh, wow.
It's weird.
Yeah. I don't go to too many shows, I'll admit. I'm kind of a homebody, so I go out when I'm performing, and I do go out to see local arts, but I'll admit I have to get out more. In fact, I don't know. I know you have a lot of folks on here. Maybe Monk. Have you met Monk?
I'm familiar with Monk. I have not had him on.
So I've met him out recently at some networking events, and he does the poetry stuff.
Hmm.
And it's at the V Spot in Scranton, and it's on Wednesday nights. And I'm like, okay, Monk, I will make it to maybe one of these because I don't leave my house in the winter practically, and I think it's like 8 to 10. And so there's one coming up in February where he's gonna have the folks from Scranton Improv, and he's like, okay, if you go to one, come to the February one. So I'm like, I'm gonna do it. So I gotta psych myself up. So I'm
Okay.
going.
Get ready.
Get ready.
Brew the coffee now. Get
I
ready.
know, seriously.
But tell me a little bit about who you are, because I mean, admittedly, I'm not familiar with who Jeannine Luby is.
What?
I
This is
know.
this
Again, I'm
okay,
trying
wait,
to.
let me get back up on my chair here. Hold on.
I mean, I did a little research, and I try not to do too much because I try and have it happen organically. So I didn't want to like really, find out too much about you. I want to learn about you on the fly. Um, but you seem to like run, I wouldn't say the same circles, but being, my background and growing up with the Weekender and being in radio currently, we have the same circles essentially, but they've just never kind of played in the same room
Yeah. Yeah.
at the same
Well,
time.
first of all, I want to say I like your style with your podcast so far. Like we were like right on the same page because I do the same thing with mine. Like I don't, first of all, I don't have enough hours in the day. And even though I have two podcast sponsors, it's not like a huge form of income. So I can't have like a pre-interview
Right.
and then the podcast. And I don't want to know all this stuff about you. It's like I want to do the same thing like you're saying. I want to get to know the person on air because it is authentic, you
Yeah.
know. So what do you want to know?
Well, who is Jeannine Luby? Where are you from? Like what's the foundation of what we'll get into in a bit?
Who is Jeannine Luby? Wow, what a question. All right, let me sit back here and get dramatic. Now I am from Scranton. I live in Scranton, and folks who know me know well that that's been kind of a soapbox of mine to get started. I know like every city has its problems, but I always say every place is home for somebody.
Mhm.
And I am someone who, other than leaving to go to Penn State at main campus, I've lived in Scranton my whole life. I'm a proud Scrantonian. I love to tout local businesses, local artists, performers. I'm probably less tuned in or plugged into the musicians. Not that I don't appreciate music, but that's something I'll admit I haven't really gone out to as much. Where I'm more the First Friday person, knowing a lot of like local artists. I love to support them. Their theater, a lot of comedians I know. So the architecture in this area. I had friends that I made in France who came here to visit in 2015. And like, again, being that soapbox, I get on my soapbox when people are like, well, what did you do with them here? They had a lovely time. They loved architecture here in Scranton. I took them all around. So, yeah, so I won't beat that dead horse, but I am a proud Scrantonian. And as I always say, if there's something that you don't see here, like people will complain they don't see, then make it happen.
Right.
Um, is I mean this is not a huge city but there are opportunities and I'm doing comedy, I do laughter yoga. It's like no one handed me any of the things that I do. I created them. So like I didn't create comedy but like I started doing it, and when I realized that, much like many other professions, that women were not really super respected and paid. And I won't get into certain names of people who hire comedians and don't feel the need to pay you or whatever. I was like, this is BS. I'm not doing this. So that's when I kind of created my own thing, like back in 2010, where I was like, I'm going to do my own niche. I'm going to have comedy nights for women, by women, having female comedians, and I started doing them at wineries, places that women typically tend to go. Since then, of course, I've branched out. I've done them at like Electric City Axe Company, like Laugh Your Axe Off. I've done them like all over. I'm happy to partner with anybody. But I have a show coming up at Everhart Museum. That's my second one there. I will do them anywhere. I think it's fun. I think it's actually kind of cool to do them in unique spaces. And of course, I've done them at Groove Brewing where I've mixed, male, female comedians, couples, whatever. But I kind of like that idea. I've had women in the audience tell me that they like the vibe. It's just a kind of cool thing that I've enjoyed. And I like to empower women. I mean, a lot of times you'll see a show full of men, most of the years you have, and you'll see a couple women here and there, but my shows are usually mostly women. And that's what I like to do. I'm the type of person that could keep talking. So I'm going to take a breath. So if you want to say anything.
Well, when you say women, is it women comics or the audience is primarily women?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah, I like to do so. And again, I've produced shows, like I said, where I've worked with Paul Spratt. I love
Oh,
Paul. I
yeah.
love
He's
Jeremy
been on this.
Pryle.
Yeah. Paul's
Yeah,
been
I
on.
worked with Paul back in like way back in the day when, he was still working at Best Buy. Maybe he won't want me saying that, but this is a long time ago. Like,
Yeah.
oh gosh, 2005. I don't even know if it was 2003, 4, 5. I don't even know. Way back when I was doing some comedy shows, some fundraisers. He was always one who was performing. Jeremy Pryle was performing. So that's way back. And recently I've done a couple shows, like I said, at Group Brewing, but where I've had a mix. But I typically no, I do like to have female comedians and have the audience be female, which to be honest, excuse me, I kind of sometimes struggle with that because of where we're headed with, and I don't want this to get political,
It's
but
okay.
like with gender and stuff, where I've had like people go, and I'm not discriminating. I don't like ever want them to be discriminatory, but there is a certain vibe. Like, I don't know how many men are fully going to understand my perimenopause joke or mammograms. I've had men laugh at those jokes because I've done shows that were a mixed audience and they've laughed, but there is a certain connection, like women like, oh, I get that. Like, so yeah, so that's pretty much what
So
I've
your
been
content
focused on.
is more relatable to that audience.
Yeah, and I don't want to, I should say, because I don't want women or other people saying, well, that's BS, because men, yeah, men can laugh at these jokes and they have. It's just that it's relatable for women. And as far as the women that the people I have, the comedians performing women, because I want them to have the opportunities. And I like, that sense of having a show that's all women.
How important was it for you to kind of uh, create that space for, women? Because obviously they're kind of, they're not, what's the word I want to use? I guess they're underrepresented. Is that what underrepresented or
Yeah, I'd say underrepresented. And
is that a
and
word?
thankfully, yeah, it is. That's a word.
Uh, again, it's late, right? Um, unfortunately, right? Like even in any kind of entertainment, whether it's musicians, and unfortunately, that's just kind of what's happened. I think we're getting better, right? Thanks to people like you, and
Yeah.
we're getting better. But how important was it for you to kind of create that space with what you do?
I so first I want to say yes, it is getting better. I see a lot more of that, excuse me, which is great. But I think for me, when I was so I do this, I want to make it clear. It's like, yes, I make some money on the shows, but after you put in time for producing, I produce my show. So I'm really not making money. So I'll call it more of a hobby.
Sure.
And I haven't done it like the people, like when they see, oh, you've been doing this 20 years inconsistently. So it's not like someone who's been working on their craft, going to New York City every weekend or whatever. I do like maybe 6, 7 shows, maybe 8 a year. But when I was doing it, when I first started, and I was doing it for a while, and I had this one gentleman, again, I won't say his name, who was like something to the effect of being funny for a woman. And I'm like, dude, thinking to myself, dude, you're not funny for like a rubber plant, but you're going to tell me this. So I was like, I'm just going to start doing my own thing. And I think it was 2010 when I had self-published a book, Keep Whining, or He's Not Prince Charming When, was this book that I made. I worked with a local illustrator. I was dating back then a lot, and having these bad dates. So I put this together, and then I decided this idea I had in 2010 was keep whining, he might start to look like Prince Charming. So that's kind of where I got the whole idea with the wineries, and it was kind of building off that, but it was also this idea that I didn't see shows that were mostly women. You'd see mostly men, and you'd occasionally see like maybe there'd be 3 guys and 1 woman. But in 2010, you still didn't see it all that much. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to produce these shows, I'm totally in control. So I'm going to get women comedians, and I'm going to call it a ladies' night at a winery, and it worked, and it still pretty much does. Except through the years, I've gotten a lot of women that are like, or even men, oh, so this is like a women's night. You have it listed as, does that mean men aren't welcome? Or can I go? Or, I'll have a woman say, can I bring my husband? And I'm like, do you have to? And I've had a few folks who do, and that's okay. And it's not meant to be, people will jokingly ask me about like, are we bashing men? It's like, isn't that so funny that you do literally think it's all about you? No, we're actually talking about other things. But it's just the vibe that it creates. And again, I'm not the only one doing it. Thankfully, other people are too. But there should be more voices out there of women comedians. So
Yeah, I don't know that I mean, in general, there's not a lot, right? So, I mean, are there a lot in, NEPA?
Um, I don't know if I'd say a lot, but you know what? I'll admit because again, I'm joking about it being late. I have gotten, I don't want to say lazy, but we could call it lazy if you want. I don't do open mics anymore. Not that I think I'm so polished I don't need them, but like at 53 and I'm just doing this for myself, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to sit through 20 comedians, half of them just dropping the F bomb unless things have changed. Like a lot of people who thought they were hysterical, and like sitting there for 3 hours. I'm not doing that stuff anymore. So but my point is, I know that there are more local female comedians out there. I see them. Ryan Flaherty is someone local who does one at Abide Coffee Shop in Wilkes-Barre, and I have yet to get to one. Shame on me because, like I said, I'm get lazy and I don't want to be out past 9 at night. But he does it, and I see like 3 or 4 people who are women in his, maybe 10 or 12 comedians, and I'm like, that's cool, that's great. So there are, I guess, I'd say a handful to a dozen. I also, though, work with some folks in the Poconos, Jessica Delfino. I've met some women in the Lehigh Valley area who do shows at the Steel Stack. So I've met them. And so it's good to like spread out your network. So I do feel pretty comfortable. The show I've got coming up at the Everhard, woman, Emily Epstein White, who's coming up from Philadelphia. And she came up last year to Groove Brewing. So you have to be willing to kind of like, put your search out there and get connected online. So I think there's a decent amount.
So you're also booking out like outside the area too, bringing people in.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay, that's
absolutely.
good.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's a good handful in the area here, but yeah, no, I've had Megan Hanley. She lives in Brooklyn and she goes all over. So yeah, I do like to bring in some folks. My concern with that when they have travel, it's like, okay, can I afford them? Because I don't have a huge budget with these shows. But if they're willing to work with me, I'd love to have them. I've had another woman, Madeline, who came from also I think Brooklyn, Jersey City. So yeah, I definitely like to bring women in.
And how did you yourself get into comedy? What made you kind of jump into that?
And anyone who's heard me talk before is like, oh God, Jeannine, would you stop telling that same damn story? But I
Well,
joke
I don't know it,
about,
so.
you don't know it. Okay. But if anyone hears it and they're like, shut up, Jeannine, you've said this before. I don't know if I'm like an extroverted introvert or an introverted extrovert because as a kid growing up, like I had a sense of humor and I wanted to express it somehow, but I used to write, when I was young and I'd say, oh, maybe someday I'll do comedy, or maybe I always wanted to do like funny greeting cards. That was kind of my thing as a kid. So I was the kid that like I got straight A's. I didn't raise my hand though. I wasn't very gregarious or outgoing. And it wasn't really until my late 20s or mid to late 20s that I tried improv because that's what I had seen. I saw a local improv show and I started doing improv. And then I kind of just wanted some outlet for comedy. And I loved hearing people laugh at something I did with improv, which of course is so different because it's more group oriented or like you're relying on one another, which is awesome. It's a really great thing. And then I was writing some monologues, and I think it was the early 2000s. I went to visit a friend in Houston. The first time out, I said, I'm going to do an open mic night out here. And I chickened out. Next year, I went out and I said, okay, I'm ready to do it. I had a set all written. I did it at, I think it's called the Laugh Stop in Houston. And I did it and it went well. I came home and I started driving to Philly for their open mics because there wasn't a heck of a lot going on here. And then slowly, things really started moving a little bit more here. And then finally, I just started doing my own shows in 2010. So I just always knew that I wanted to express comedy and humor. And then I just finally did.
And how hard was it? Because I mean, like, you think about being funny, right? Like, if you're in a group of friends, like, oh, you're funny, right? They'll laugh at all your jokes, but like, it's a lot more. Like, it's hard. It's difficult.
Yeah, it's well, so when you tell people you do it though, like I used to actually do a joke about this where I'd say I get 2 reactions. One would be like, oh, say something funny. And I'd be like, okay, it's like I'm a monkey with the symbol, like, okay, deposit quarter and I'll say something funny, or make me laugh. Or they'd say something like, oh, do I have a story for you? And I even actually had a guy, now I'm friendly with him, so it was okay, but he sent me almost like a whole monologue of his experience at the grocery store. And I was like, you should really use this. Try it at an open mic. But I'm like, I don't need you to send me material. But it is not easy. Really. I mean, it's more than just like people be like, oh, this guy's funny. It's more than like you can be funny with your friends and you can make armpit noises or funny
Right.
voices, and that's awesome. And that's great. I mean, it's good to make your friends laugh. But it's different than being able to, and I'm not trying to say I do anything special, trust me. I'm just saying you have to write, you have to know how to write and learn. I mean, I never took formal classes. I did read Judy Carter's comedy Bible, and she talks about formulas for joke writing. So I did read that, but I didn't take any classes, and I just like learned and watched other people, and you fine tune. And so there is something to it. I mean,
Just
writing is a
timing.
big part. And yeah, timing is huge. In fact, I think, struggle a little bit with that. When I went and did it in Philly, when I was kind of first starting, the club manager said, he goes, you were funny. He said, you had a good set, but you stepped on your punchlines, or like, I wasn't allowing the audience time to laugh. And I think I still tend to, even after all these years, maybe not, uh, sit in and comfort. I'm not comfortable enough to sit in the laughter long enough. And I think I have
Right.
to get better at that.
I like that. Sitting in laughter long enough.
Not
It
a
is.
bad place to sit, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, people think it's just easy. You get up and tell jokes, but I mean, it's so much more than that. I mean, are there any comedians that you kind of like looked up to when you kind of got interested in it, or that you kind of like watched, or you wanted to kind of emulate, or anything like that, or you just wanted to be Jeannine Luby?
I definitely had. So it's funny because when people ask me, and someone just asked me today, I was meeting a friend for coffee, and she said, "Who is your favorite comedian?" And I honestly can't ever answer that question.
It's hard.
I don't, and I don't know that I have a favorite. I know a bunch that I laugh at and I like. Back in, I probably had favorites years ago because I used to watch Eddie Murphy Raw a lot. And now of course I don't know he could tell those jokes, but
Mm.
Eddie Murphy Raw, I laughed a lot at that. And I know a lot of his jokes would be seen as inappropriate, but I thought he was hysterical. I did like people, and still today, like SNL characters like sketch, even though it's totally different than stand up. Tracy Ullman show I watched when I was younger. So there was none that I really, I guess, totally emulated, but I do like Ellen DeGeneres' stand up. I got to see her when she was in, I think it was the early 2000s at the Kirby Center.
Mm.
I mean, I just like, she's clean comedy, and it's not that I don't have a problem with dirty comedy. I don't particularly do it. I'm okay with it if it's smart. I mean, anyone can just say trashy stuff. I don't think that's especially smart. I like to be smart with comedy.
Right.
But it's not just the fact that she is clean, but she's smart. Smart and sometimes everyday stuff. So I definitely liked her. Seinfeld, it's funny, that's my absolute favorite comedy show, but he's not by far not my favorite comedian. I think he's okay as a stand-up, but the show I absolutely will watch.
Like the TV show or his comedy show?
The TV show.
I li-
Seinfeld, the show.
I
Yeah.
literally fall asleep to that every single night because it's something I can hear, but I don't have to pay attention to because like I could, be on my side sleeping and know what's happening on TV. I was just talking about that today. Like that show is it's brilliant. That show is
Yes.
brilliant, and
Yes.
I could go on about that show all night. I mean, that's just what a. I mean, I've seen every episode like I don't know probably 5 times, and every time it gets funnier. It's just or I find something new about it.
Yeah. I watched that when it was on all the time. I own the DVDs, which now I don't even have a DVD player, but it went from being on TBS to now it's on Netflix. And it's my comfort show. It's my safe space show. I'm going to do a little work on my laptop and I'm going to put it on the background show. I will pick out, oh, this is one of my favorites. I will pick out, episodes to read. I have seen them all. I swear to God, even 20 times a piece, each one.
Yeah.
It is my absolute go-to show. But as a comedian, as a stand-up, I was a little like, his stand-up, Jerry. I did see Jerry Seinfeld twice, I think, and it was fine. It's just like that was okay, but the show, and I think it's a combination of him and Larry David,
Hmm.
and the ability to find the funny in every little nuance of life. I absolutely love it. And it's so funny when I meet people who will be like, yeah, I don't like that show. Or I had a friend tell me she thought it was stupid. And I'm like, after I picked myself up off the floor, I was like, what? How dare you?
Yeah, well, just today, I forget how it started. Somebody said something, and I responded, and we started going into the whole the write off thing. And they're the ones writing it off, and we just kept talking, and we kept throwing in these like these lines, and then the girl in the room was like, I don't really like that. I'm like, get out of here! Don't talk to us.
Yeah.
There's adults in the
I
room.
think there should be like an improv or a sketch. I would love to see it done. And I'm sure it's been done because let's face it, I had a smart boss who told me none of us are reinventing the wheel. But like a sketch or an improv game where you're only speaking in famous phrases from that. I would love to see that. Like, these pretzels are making me thirsty. And
That's
then,
how it
like,
started. I'm sorry.
yeah.
That's exactly how it started. I had a bag of pretzels. I went to the deli across the street, had a bag of pretzel and a coffee, and the girl said, "Where'd you get those pretzels from?" And I said, "These pretzels are making me thirsty." That's exactly how it started. Yes, yes.
These pretzels are making me thirsty.
And then she was saying how like I was talking about a car dealer that we work with, and how she got the car but not from that dealer. And then she talked about getting the car and then putting the Rock 107 logo on it. And I said, oh yeah, it could be a write off. And it just went into the whole write off thing. And oh my God, it was great. But the thing about that whole show too is like, it wasn't just Jerry and Larry David. I mean, like, Jason Alexander and Michael Richards and Julia.
Julia Louis
I mean, like
Dreyfus.
they're so
Perfection. Yeah.
like some. I often think about like these like, casting directors, like, and how good they are at making these shows and picking the right people. Because like you always see like, oh, so and so auditioned for the role of name a character on The Office or whatever, and like knowing what The Office is or was, and then knowing the actor that could have played Michael Scott, you're like that never would have worked. Like that
Yeah.
was perfect for that show. Like it's kind of neat to see that side too.
Oh, absolutely. And I think they were honestly priceless. I remember reading an article. I think it was, I don't know what episode, I'd have to go back and look, but I think Jason Alexander wasn't in it. And I think the story goes, he came back and said, I'm out if you ever do an episode without me. Like, I forget which one it was, but it's like they're just perfect together. And I also love that they had said sometimes they'd write a line and they would think this is the line that maybe Jerry's going to say, but then they'd end up having Elaine say it.
Hmm.
Like, I always think of the Hamptons,
Hmm.
when that girl's Jane is topless.
Yep.
And then, Boutros, golly. And then,
Uh,
of course, Elaine has the
I
line,
was in the
nice
pool.
rack.
I was in the pool.
Oh my God. I love that. Is one of my favorites that I will play off in the Hamptons. Love it.
Yeah.
Do women know about shrinkage?
Well, I mean, it's like it's relatable stuff. Like, and I watched it. Probably I don't know if I was probably too young or not, but I feel like I was in junior high when I started watching it, and obviously there's stuff that goes over your head when you're in junior high with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's just such a amazing show. I mean, I guess that's why. And I've seen him like probably 2 or 3 times now, and I probably wouldn't see him again, Jerry Seinfeld at
Mm-hmm.
least, because not a lot of he doesn't have new material.
Yeah.
He might throw in like 1 or 2 new ones, but a majority of the show itself, like that's what sucks about comedy, is it's like once you hear the punchline, it's kind of done to a degree.
Yeah. Unless you have like the ability, which some comedians do. And I don't know if I can think of any right offhand that like, and I forget the exact technical term, but like how you stretch out a joke, that throw it, like there's lines that you can keep it going.
Hmm.
And that's when I think, lesser known comedians, although maybe she's getting more well known, Tig Notaro. is someone that I like. And she kind of got a lot of popularity when she went on stage years ago, right after her cancer diagnosis. And she had broken up with her girlfriend and she had gotten over this illness. And then she just found out she had cancer. And she went out there and she's like, hi, like her style is just very different. Hi, hey, how is everyone doing? Yeah. So I have cancer. And like they laughed
Yeah.
and then they realized she's serious, but she
Yeah.
still managed. It was all raw and she did it. And it was at Largo in California. And it really, I mean, it didn't blow her up to the point that she's a household name, but it got her more well known. And she had a bit, I think it was on the Conan O'Brien is a big fan of hers and he'd have her on a lot. She had a joke where she literally dragged a stool across the stage and got laughs for like I don't even know how long. And Conan O'Brien is like, oh, by the way, you've ruined our floor, just so you know. But like she has a style. Obviously every comedian's different, where it's not just about setup, punchline, setup,
Right.
punchline. And there's something kind of not everyone appreciates that, but then it goes beyond the punchline. They're just funny, you know.
What would you say your style is? Because I mean, there's storytellers. I just went and saw Tom Segura maybe 2 weeks ago. He's a big storyteller. And I'm not really sure. Like that's for me. I mean, he's funny. It's fine, but like it's too long for me. I don't. And maybe it's just who I am, my attention span, or like I just want the satisfactions. Like stop making me wait for it. But what style would be yours?
It's funny. Someone asked me that recently. Jessica Delfino in the Poconos had me on her show, and she said, "How would you describe your style?" And I said, "Or your comedy?" I said, "Personal." I'd call it personal. I guess I don't know that I'd say storytelling exactly because I'm not someone that like you have to listen for 5, 6, 7 minutes before you get to the funny. I do, set up punchline, but I mean, old school was like it had to be. I forget what they used to write, where you had to have so many laughs and like it was set up, punchline. I'm not like boom, 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 like firing them off, but it is a little bit of storytelling, I guess you'd say, because it is very personal, like talking about my age and then talking about what comes with this age, mammograms, my parents getting older, taking them for their living wills and then going out for ice cream sundaes and like talking like juxtaposition in life. Like, so it's interesting how it's evolving for me because it's becoming easier to do my set. And I always, I want to set it up so that it flows, so I don't forget things. And although, of course, the audience isn't going to know, but it's becoming really, it's kind of cool that it's revolving on its own. It's becoming natural. I'm like, wow, well, this is pretty much my life now. And it's getting easier to kind of tell it because it's kind of gelling and it makes sense. Let's see, oh, okay, I'm going through this. My day is like, my perimenopausal hormones are, making me a bitch or whatever, or in
Yeah.
that moment, I go from being angry to sad to whatever. And that's part of my day. And then, living next door to my parents who are older, who need my help. Like it's just being, because it's so personal, it's becoming pretty easy to do my comedy set.
Well, it sounds like, and I think what makes things funny is, comedians are able to put into words or create these situations that we all go through, right? Like we're all living it. But we like people like me who are dumb, like we just kind of go through the motions and go through the day to day shit. And then it's people like you that are like painting this picture that I've lived, and it's like, wow, that's funny because I've been through that.
Yeah, and it's kind of nice when the show I did in the Poconos a few weeks ago, there was definitely people who relate it more. And again, it's to go back to what I talked about before with women getting, really relating. There was a group of women to my left, and they were like, you could tell, and the girls like pointing to the woman next to her, and they're like having their little side conversation. I had some jokes about, I don't know. Oh, it was a joke about how I do this joke about technology, and I joke about like the paper towel dispenser and like, the automatic faucet, and like how I have to do like 3 courses of all that jazz before I can get the water to turn on. And I'm like
Right.
so exhausted by the time I go to the paper towel dispenser, I send in my understudy. And like, she's like cracking up and they're like, yeah, it's kind of like that. Oh my God, that happened to us in the bathroom. Like it's that
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, that's relatable. And
Right.
just, I'm also trying to explore a little bit more physical. So doing, more motions, like big motions with my hands, or even getting into like, not that I'm singing, but like singing a little bit. Like I want to show, even though I've been doing this a while, I still feel like I'm a little shy, and there's silliness in me that I show to people very close to me, but not to everyone. That would be my goal next, to really let that out fully. But yeah, yeah.
Have you dealt with any hecklers?
Um, I probably don't perform enough, like as often, I should say, to get a ton, but I did this. So this is interesting. Years ago, when I first started in like 2010, 2011, I was doing this, keep whining. He might start like to look like Prince Charming. I was really focused on wineries, and I did it in Wyalusing. And I knew it was going to be trouble. So I hadn't been doing it that long. So I'll admit is probably a little bit of my inexperience. Plus, like I said, I don't do this all the time. The folks who were at the winery were like, "Oh yeah, we're excited for the show. We have a group of women coming from Tawanda on a school bus." And I thought, "Oh shit." And pardon me if I'm not supposed to curse,
No,
but
you're fine.
for some reason, sometimes people think that we want people in the audience to be drunk. And maybe some comedians do. I don't. Like
No,
I want the audience to hear my jokes. I don't want to be interrupted. Like that's so when they're drunk and women can get a little belligerent, just like anybody in the
sure.
audience. But knowing that they were coming on a school bus, a whole group of them, I'm like, oh, that's going to be trouble. So this particular winery, they also had a funeral home, so they had us set up in one of the viewing rooms in their funeral home, which was an interesting, which I didn't even know going up. I was like, oh, okay, that's where we're going to be. So these folks who came down, I think there were a group of teachers who came from Tawanda, were trashed, like drinking out of bottles, trashed, falling off the seats they were on, trashed. And they were young-ish, like maybe late 20s. And there were other women who were a little bit older who wanted to hear the show. So that was disastrous, like truly. That is the only one that I can say was truly disastrous. Otherwise, I've had what I would call, I forget what someone called them recently, helpful or good hecklers, where they're not like, they just want to help you with your joke. So they're either adding the punchlines, or they're like, yeah, like they're agreeing with you. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And like, no, you're enthusiastic. That's awesome. But hold it to yourself. And a couple of those where you're like, I forget. I've had a couple where they like, it was kind of maybe something for me though to think about, like maybe I need to work on my punchline, because the woman kind of said one of my punchlines. I'm like, well, if it's that predictable, then I need to make it better.
Eh, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I always wondered how like people would like how they react, because like there's a lot of comedians that like are really good with being able to like um what's the word, uh what's the D, if you want to blank a bomb.
De-escalate,
No, well, yeah, that works too. But if you want diffuse,
diffuse.
yeah, they're able to diffuse the situation. But like Matt Rife, like his comedy, I don't know if you're familiar or not.
A little, not much.
You know, like him.
I don't know him well enough to have an opinion,
Uh,
but
well, it
I
just
have an opinion before knowing him, so I
the
won't share
yeah, well,
it.
just like the crowd interaction. Like he's able to like really kind of like that's his whole thing, I guess. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
if I was a comedian, like I would have this set like planned out, 20 minutes or whatever it was. I don't know if I got like thrown off that game, I would be like it'd probably fall apart.
When I first started doing it, and it probably still is in me, it's my personality, it's my nature to become almost like a school teacher, where I'm
Mm.
like, okay, and I don't have the sometimes in the beginning, especially years ago, I'd be more like I was, admonishing them, or like, okay, now, like, which no one wants to really hear, like, okay, you need to be quiet, like whatever. I did that in the beginning, and that doesn't really help the show, because you don't want to, but I've gotten a little bit better where I try to make it like I'm making my point, but in a
If
way
you do it
that's
the right,
somewhat funny. Yeah.
yeah, the right way, yeah, and I get that vibe from you. How you could turn it
Yeah.
like tactfully, right? Yeah, I mean, I find the whole comedian thing like just fascinating. I've got a couple ideas for jokes that I think are funny. They're probably not, but I have a couple ideas.
Have you ever thought of doing an open mic?
No, because that's scary. And I
Yeah.
thought like one day I was driving and I was trying to like in my mind kind of like figure out how to put the pieces together. My brain, I don't think works that way. It's just not. And I truly feel that there's people that like have, whether they're, musicians or writers and like they have this side of their brain that they can like use. And I just don't have that. I
Hmm.
just don't.
Well, again, I think everything is changing, and I think obviously comedy is changing, and it's definitely changing. Like this whole idea of the setup, the punchline, and you're finding a lot more storytellers. You're finding some people who just do crowd work, and you're finding other people who are like, okay, that's not real comedian if you're not like writing and you're just riffing with the audience. And I've seen comedians recently a lot, actually locally, who are bringing their notes and looking at them while they're performing. Like, I'm like, for me, I don't love that.
Right.
I mean, that's to me, it's still meant for open mics. It's not like
Yeah.
this is a paid gig. You're referencing, your list. People do it, so I don't, want to get into that or whatever. But it's definitely changing. But what I had read, I think it's more about humor than just stand up. Like that the more details you have, and this is kind of even maybe in sketch, like, we talked about Seinfeld, the more specifics, the more details you have, the funnier things are. And that's something I think for me, you said you don't have the mindset or whatever for it. That's something. I'm a detail person, so maybe that helps with my comedy. Like I'm very like detail oriented, specific. So it's like I used to teach a speech class at King's, and I was like the only teacher that had them do a monologue. So I would say, specifics generate comedy. That's what we were taught in improv too. So when you're talking about whatever it is you're going through, like whether it's a food, instead of saying, oh, and I ate a whole pizza, if you're like with anchovies, with whatever, and the more specifics you give, it just generates humor a little bit more, or
Yeah.
comedy, and maybe that helps me. I don't know.
Well, when I talk to musicians, like a lot write about things that they've gone through or that they're feeling, but some write about like nothing, like things that they create, stories they create, and I don't know how to do that because if I were to write music, I would have to write about something that happened to me or something I'm feeling, and I think that with comedy too, it's like you have to be able to. I don't want to say, well, I'll call it fluff. Like you need to add fluff to really kind of, in my opinion, kind of round that out to a degree. I'll show you my two ideas because I haven't told anybody them.
Oh
Maybe I should
boy.
just do it on here so it's documented.
Okay.
I don't know. Should I?
Yeah, you should totally.
All right, I will. Someone's got to steal them, but that's okay. I
Oh man,
not
yeah,
you.
you gotta love a man.
I'm not saying you will
So
steal
good,
them.
someone's gonna steal
It is.
them. It's
Uh,
gold, baby.
so the first one is obviously the education in this country is in question, right? Um, and how could it not be with the fact that we send our kids to daycare centers and early education centers with the names of the business spelled wrong. Kiddie campus with a K,
Ah,
campus with a K, like early learners with a Z. Like you're walking into the goddamn building with words that are spelled wrong. I think there's
you
something
got a
there.
good start there. Yeah.
There's something there.
There is definitely something there. Yeah.
Yeah. And the second one is
I'm stealing it, by the way.
that's fine. Hey, you know what? Just give me credits. Just give me
I don't, nah, I don't have kids. So I won't be doing that,
after
Joe.
it's no. Just give me credit. I just whatever. Just give me tickets to the show. That's fine.
Okay.
Because it'll never go anywhere with me. So I'd rather go somewhere, create it, write it out, figure it out, make it sound good.
Make it happen.
And the second one, it's not. It's funny because it's funny, but it's not funny. But um, there's all these places like Dave and Buster's and like these trampoline parks, and I feel like it's like for pedophiles or sex traffickers. They can just walk in and just pick whatever they want. I'm not sure if you've ever been to one before, but there's like one specifically, won't say the name of it, but there's like two entrances, and they're both on opposite sides of where the desk is. So there's no security. Like you could literally just walk in and take one. Little
And take
dark,
one.
little dark.
I was just gonna say, I don't, I kind of like dark, and I could do dark. You might not get everyone with that joke, but I could see that you can have like a pedophile punch card to go
Listen,
from Chuck E. Cheese to the next place or whatever. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I have kids. I mean, I have two kids. They're young. It's kind of, but like we've gone to them. That's how I even like thought of the idea. So I'm just looking around. I'm like, wow, like this could be potentially bad.
yeah, yeah. You're onto something there. And see, you know what? You're not giving yourself enough credit. You're definitely onto something because observing, that's a big part of humor and comedy. You're observing and then you're kind of like putting it through the old scanner there. And you're comedy is about incongruity. Yeah. So you're definitely onto something.
I got a lot of ideas. I got an idea for a book, for a kid's book. Again, see, I suffer from this thing where like nothing I do is very important or clever or good. That's just like it's just I'm just I don't know what it is. I just that's just who I am. Like just like nothing like I don't know. It's weird.
Hmm.
So I just like I always have these ideas and things, but I'll never sit down and be like, this could work or this makes sense. Like let's explore this more. Because I just don't think whatever I do is any good or worthwhile. It's a
Well,
weight
maybe
I
you're too
carry.
busy too. You got a lot going on, right?
Uh yeah, maybe, but and if I really wanted to, I could probably figure it out.
Well, maybe you're not ready yet. It's coming.
We'll see.
Yeah,
We'll see.
maybe.
I'll just
Yeah.
share my ideas and just ask for like credits at the end.
Okay. All right. Let
Yeah.
me ask you if you don't mind, because you have young children, because this is something that works its way into my comedy because it's something I see in reality. Are you one of those folks who likes to bring his kids to breweries or wineries?
I would prefer not to. In
That's a good
fact,
answer.
yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and knock people who do. It's you know what it's hard, right? Like, it's hard as parents to find time to to do those things, right? Like, it's either A, take them with you, or B, go when you have a babysitter, which it's hard to find. I I remember when my son was first, he was almost a year old. We were in Cape May, and we wanted to go to Cape May Brewing, and we're like, we're only there like once a year, so we're like, we really want to go, but like, got a kid here, like. If we go, like, is this gonna be like, are we gonna like the stink eye from the bartender? So I called. I'm like, listen, like, I just want to call ahead and see if it was like, okay. Like, is this what some people do? I don't want to like intrude or like, bring a kid to a place where they don't belong. And they're like, oh no, like there's kids here all the time. I'm like, okay, cool. Now again, that was probably the first and only time they've been in a brewery, and that's because again we were on vacation. It was just me, my wife, and my son. I would just prefer not to, but that's
Yeah.
just me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I try and like my son doesn't really see me drink that often. It's never like really a thing. Or my or daughter, because she's two, so she doesn't even know what that is. I don't know. I don't knock it. It's just something I kind of like try to separate.
Yeah. It's something I don't have kids, but I feel like it's almost become a family destination. That's why
Yeah,
I it does kind of irk me because I've seen like at Wall and Pawpack Brewing, like a woman holding a baby while she's drinking her beer, and then her whatever spouse partner isn't watching their toddler, who is now like, as people are coming out trying to serve while there's a toddler then at their feet. Like
there's nothing worse.
I see it, and I see it like everywhere I go, and it's probably one of those things. I mean, I know there's a name for it. When you look for something, you will find it. Now it irks
Yeah,
the shit out of me, so I see it everywhere. And for me personally, and it's not just like I'm Cruella Deville, that I don't like children, but I don't necessarily, I like my friends' children,
Sure.
and I like children who are well behaved. So if you're bringing the kids there, how about you watch them? That's my thing. And it just drives me bonkers because I'm like, when did breweries and wineries become like a family destination? And I see that a lot. And I'm just like, I don't get it. And if they're well behaved, great. But like, I didn't come here to have your kid be running around. Like, I just not cool for me. It's like go to Chuck E. Cheese and see if you can get a slushy wine machine there. I don't know. I'm just like not into
Yeah.
it.
No, I agree. And I lied. I've been to Cape May and then Breaker Brewing with my kids, but like that was for like a lunch, and we just happened to have like a flight of beer as well. Um, my kids are good, but like I am also like very kind of like I don't want to call myself an asshole, but like I don't. I know how I would feel if I was without kids at a brewery and being bothered by other kids. I wouldn't want it. So like I'm very like hard on my children at regular restaurants. Just like I'm like, listen, like don't be climbing the back of the booth, and don't be making loud noises, and watch your iPad, which I don't want you doing anyways, but make sure it's appropriate volume. I'm very like cautious of that. Just
Called
'cause
being considerate.
considerate,
And
yes.
yeah, which is kind of lacking. It's like you're not in a vacuum, people. There are people around you. So no, you sound like you actually consider that there are other people in the world. So that's
Well,
nice.
yeah. I mean, what are we without that? We're just savages. We're assholes. It's just like,
Yep.
but I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know how we got there.
Yeah, that was my fault. I brought that up.
No, I would prefer, and especially also like I want to be there and enjoy the beverage I'm having, the conversation with my wife that I'm having, or friends that I'm having. I don't want to chase my children around or make sure that they're like eating their food, or make sure they're not like picking their nose or whatever the hell they're doing. I don't want to worry about that in that atmosphere.
Yeah. Well,
Again,
and that's
my
what I've
opinion.
joked about. I was like, don't you people want a night out where they don't have to watch their kids? And I'll mention, I won't say the name of the winery because I don't want to like do that. But I was at a winery last week and we were talking about this very issue. And the girl who worked there, she was in her 20s, and she said, yeah, they allow it, but she personally didn't like it because she's like, I have kids who come behind here, the tasting area, and I'm trying to deliver wine to the table, and the kids are like almost like knocking me over, and the parents are not watching them. And she's like, yeah, I don't like it. And but she's like, but the owners allow it. I said, yeah, because you have to. Well, you have to. You don't have to, but it's about money. So that's
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I'll stop my griping
Yeah,
about
no,
that.
I get that too. Like, I mean, I want businesses to succeed. So if they have to, accommodate families, that's fine. But I guess it comes back to like parenting their children, making sure they're not being, you know, a problem for the staff or other patrons or whatever it might be. My son's like very good. Like I can sit there and I can go and he'll stop. He knows. My daughter, on the other hand, I don't know that she's going to react the same way. She kind of, walks to, her own, the beat of her own drum, so to speak.
She's like, yeah, whatever.
She's only 2, but like she's a different breed than my son. It's it's you always hear the stories like they're just completely different. Same parents, it's the same everything, but my son is it's that motion. Even tonight at baseball, a program we were at, he was like kind of like dancing around or whatever. I'm like, bro, stop. And he's all right, no big deal. But he's a good kid. I'm very lucky.
That's good.
Yeah. You hate kids, so
I don't hate kids,
I
though.
know, I know, I know.
I used to say I like my friends' kids
Yeah,
because
we'll get
I
off the
was
kids.
never that woman who was like, my friends years ago, oh my God, like they'd see babies out and they'd be like, oh, a baby. I'm like, no. I
Yeah,
like to play and be silly with my friends' kids, which are all actually right now almost all grown up. The youngest is probably 13. My one
yeah,
friend's daughter is 13 going on 30. And now she doesn't even want to talk to any of us. But I just like, for me, it's more of an issue. Like even at a coffee shop, just keep an eye on them
yeah.
because I don't want to play hide and seek if I'm here with my laptop trying to do work. I
Mm.
don't think the world revolves around you. And your mom and dad shouldn't tell you that it does. But I'm a bitch.
Well, Do you have a dog?
Oh boy, I'm gonna get no. I don't even have a dog. The only thing I have are dust bunnies, and
What here
plants.
here's what I'm gonna complain about. Like the whole thing with dogs can go everywhere. Like it drives me and I we just got a puppy back in April of last year. Never thought I would have a dog myself. I mean, I had dogs growing up when I was little. Again, I wasn't taking care of them, and I didn't want a dog now, but it's good for the kids, blah blah, whatever. But it's the whole thought process of like these, I can't go anywhere without my dog. I can't go to the grocery store without my dog. Hey, Jimmy, want to go to wherever? Oh, can my dog come? No, I'm not going. Like this, the whole dog culture is crazy.
That's my other pet peeve. No pun
No
intended,
pun
actually
intended.
pun
Yeah,
intended, but
yeah.
no, that's my other thing too. And again, I know I say this stuff and I'm like, I get the hate mail, but I had this same conversation at the winery because we went from talking about kids and dogs. It's the same thing. Make sure it's the dog's on a leash, but I laugh at the hypocrisy and I don't want to like take it down a wrong path or bad path, but it's like you go into a place like Krispy Kreme. Yes, I get my donuts. They don't do peanut ones anymore because someone might have a peanut allergy, which,
Hmm.
by the way, if you had it posted, the person could just not go in there. But it's like, oh my God, a person within 2 miles might have a peanut allergy. Let's hide the peanuts. But I guess everyone assumes that everyone is cool with a dog, that they're not allergic, that they're okay
Yeah.
with them because they've never had any trauma. Some people are scared of dogs. Some people were bitten by dogs. I'm not saying I'm one of them. I had a dog when I was growing up, a couple dogs we had. I pet sit for my friends. So I do love them, but I do believe that there's a place for them.
Hmm.
And I haven't been running lately because of different issues, but I was a big runner in the city and I would yell at old men who had their little dogs not on leashes on public trails when I'd be running. Because here's the deal, I don't want to trip over your dog.
Right.
I don't want to get bitten by your dog. I had a dog at the state park jump on me and leave bruises. It's like, that's your responsibility. Like,
Hmm.
it's not mine. And he's like, oh, I didn't hear you coming. I'm like, yeah, I guess I didn't wear my bells today. Sorry, dude, but that's kind of on you for not having the dog leashed.
Yeah.
That's believe me, that's one of my pet peeves because I listened to Ryan Lucky had a podcast episode. It was last year, I think, and he had two veterans on talking about, and I thought it was an excellent episode. And I'm like, God, I wish everybody would hear this. The different kinds of dogs, like their dogs are service dogs, like true
Yes.
service dogs. And
Yeah.
when I say true, I mean the only animals that actually have federal rights.
Right.
And these dogs because they are sitting still. They are there to do a purpose. They're
They're
there for
strapped
their,
up.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. They're not, you can't pet them. They're on the job. That's it. Other folks buy their little harnesses off of, Amazon.
Hmm.
That's not a service pet. Emotional support animals do not legally have to be allowed anywhere. But
Be
again,
careful. Be careful.
they do not. They do
No,
not.
they don't know, but everyone thinks they do.
Oh yeah, that believe me, that's and
Yeah.
again, people can get pissed at me, but
Yeah.
I'm just stating the reality. Like
Yeah.
like this conversation that I heard, I was like, man, because it's true. The only ones that have to legally be allowed are service dogs, and you
Right.
don't have to question when you see them. You know they're well behaved. These
Hmm.
other ones who are jumping all over, whatever, they are not service animals. Emotional support does not have to be allowed, and neither do I think. Forget the third category is the kind that kind of like goes to support dogs. Maybe they go to like nursing homes, let's say, whatever. They none of those have rights. It's that one service dog that's been trained, has the jacket, and knows their job, and you do not interfere with them when they're on the job. And they talked about this. When
Hmm.
they have their little coat on or their jacket, they're working. That is
Yep.
it. These other dogs, and again, I know it's the culture and people want to smack me in the head, and that's fine. But the deal is I watched at a local coffee shop where I just got my food and my coffee. A woman came in with her dog. He jumped up, had his paws on that same counter. And the thing is, the owner and the people who work there were giving him bones. So who am I going to complain to? I sit there while the hair is flying in the air and the
Yep.
dog's paws are there. I'm like, oh, so it's cool because the owner is literally and his employees giving the dog bones.
Yep.
And the sad part, and this because I'm well versed in this pet peeve that I talk about a lot, is that I would be I'm the jerk if I were to talk about this or say something on social media. Absolutely the jerk when I'm like, really? in a different world, you might be the jerk because no one asked to have that slobber there where I
So
just got
disgusting.
food and coffee or that hair that's flying around. But no, you're right. I am absolutely being unreasonable here.
When did this happen? I don't even know. Like it's insane to me. And that's what it's the funniest thing is my wife and I, we were leaving a friend's house a week before we got a dog, talking about how we're not dog people. I hate the drool. I hate the hair. I hate the inconvenience of like, we're not like in our 60s with nowhere to go and all the time in the world on it. We're busy. Like she's in school. She works full time and goes to school two nights a week. I announce basketball games. Our kids are in sports and dance. Like we're on the move. Like we're not homebodies. We go on vacations twice a year with our families. I hate when you walk in a house. My biggest thing before I had a dog was you walk in a house and the dog is instantly nose in your dick, and I'm like this, right? Like, oh, you don't like dogs? I'm like, no, I love dogs. Dogs are awesome. I don't like dogs in my dick. That's me. That's just me. It
I
just
have a joke about that, and I even have it on a coaster. My with my I do doodles. My philosophy on men and dogs is the same or similar. Unless invited, keep your nose out of my crotch.
all right. That's good. That's good. That's good. I like that. But no, it's just like and to me, and I've said this out loud before, like dogs to me are needy and dumb. And when I say that to people, they're like just like taken aback. Like, what? What did you say? I said, no, hear me out. Dogs are very smart in the fact that they can listen, they can be trained, all those things. Very smart. They know their names, all that kind of shit. But they will eat your fucking sock. They will eat everything that they shouldn't, which was going to cost you $1 million at the vet. Let's call a spade a spade. And they're needy. It's like that. Like a girl, I always said, a girl could be a 12. If she's needy or dumb, not interested. That's just me. Like that needy, like they, you get home and they're like all up in your face, like want me, love me. Like I don't want that. Like independence, um, be smart, be intelligent. That's attractive. But so like for me, for a dog, it's just like, and then I'm not relating the dog to a woman. I'm not doing that. Please
My
don't.
mind was like, oh, so dogs and women
No.
are.
And no. I'm not doing that. No, I just
It
anything.
sounded like you were for a
No,
second
no, no,
there.
no, no. So no, I want to make that very clear. I'm not relating dogs. I said
Ooh.
anything needy and it goes for the same thing. I wouldn't want a guy, like a man, to be needy and dumb. Like if they were, that's probably not attractive, right?
No,
Exactly. So I'm just saying in general, things that are needy and dumb, it's not
are not
attractive.
good.
It's not
Yeah,
attractive.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
an attractive trait.
No, it's not. You're
Is
right. You're right. You're
um,
right.
so yeah, I'm not relating the two together, but it's just I don't know.
It's a different time. In fact, it's just, oh my gosh, so you could shut me up whenever or ask me to shut up, I should say, because
No,
this
no.
is something I have been going off on lately. I'm even on my own podcast. In fact, my recent episode, woman that I had on is we talk about budgeting, and we talked about the whole issue of the cost of animals and how you even afford it. And like,
Yeah.
I don't even want to spend $2,000 on a new computer that I actually need because I
Right.
have a business and I that will make me money. Never
Right.
mind 5,000 for a hip surgery for your labradoodle or whatever. So I wouldn't be spending that money. So I said the real question, like legit serious question: how do people who don't have the money for this have animals? Because I think I don't know how they do it, but the whole start of the conversation and my real peeve with all this is that I'll see a lot of people posting on social media about I the whole idea of hating humans, and like I'll just like pets are better than people, pets are people, like they're not people. And my thing is, or my theory is, I get it. You've been hurt before. Like, I feel like people who've been hurt, and we've all been hurt, right?
Sure.
But people who've been hurt before, it's like, of course, your dog doesn't talk back. So, of course, your dog is better. They're not going to be like,
Yeah.
all right, Susie, shut the fuck up about your ex. You know, yes, he left you. Like, they're not going to say stuff to you. So, it's unconditional. So, of course, you love them more or you feel
Sure.
safe with them. But unfortunately, I feel like that has become a whole culture thing. And for me personally, because I do go out with not just the comedy, but the laughter yoga, which I do try to be positive and stuff, it's like I get annoyed, not just in like a negative, hateful way, but I get like worried because that's where we see like we're not considering other people.
Mm-hmm.
We're just in our bubble of like, I have my kids and my dog, or just my dog, or just my kids. And it's like your dog isn't going to save your life if you're having a heart attack. They're not calling 911. Your dog's not doing your taxes. You're
They're
like,
gonna
so
lick
you
your
still
face,
kind
yeah.
of need people, right? But yet you hate people. And I get sick of seeing that because it's like you keep saying that enough. Or if you kind of have that sentimentality around your kids, you're not showing courtesy for other people. What? Because somebody hurt you, now you hate people. It drives me bonkers. So I
Yeah.
just like it annoys the shit out of me.
We could go on all day. I mean, the same
I know. I
people
was
that
gonna
are
say I'll stop.
the same people that are affording these animals are the same ones that can't afford the kids they have.
Yeah. Well, and
Holy,
that's a matter of priorities. You got to pick. That's why I said I honestly I don't have a dog, and I probably seem like a unicorn. No dog, no kids. Oh my god, what are you, an alien? Possibly.
no
I could
cat,
be.
no
Yeah, no
pets.
cat. No,
Oh
I
boy,
could be.
you
I'm
might
such
be a
a.
unicorn. Yeah.
I'm a freak.
Do you have a house? Do you have a house plant?
I do. I have
Okay.
four or
All
five of
right.
them.
We
Yeah,
figured it out.
yeah.
Okay. You're good. You're good.
I have about 5 plants and a ton of dust bunnies, so I'm
All
pretty
right.
good. But
All right. We figured you out.
I feel like if I had them, I would not be spending because I don't have that kind of money. I don't. I don't have like 3,000 to spend on or 300 on a teeth cleaning if they have to be put under and then like
Yeah.
I don't. And I said too the other day when I had this conversation with her, I remember back in the day, I'm a Gen Xer, so it was like we were back in the day when you'd actually tie your dog outside. You'd have an
Outside
outside dog. It's
and
like,
leave it
oh,
out.
shh, don't you dare say that. They
Yeah.
have to be on like like Egyptian cotton sheets. How
Mm-hmm.
dare you? Like, and we took her once a year for like pet worm medicine or heartworm, I should say, heartworm medicine, and she lived to be 15.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just curious what is changing that all of a sudden people spend thousands and thousands of dollars on vet bills. We weren't doing that back
Yeah.
then.
My dog when growing up lived in the garage, so not outside in the extreme cold elements, but I mean the garage wasn't like a heated garage. It was just in the garage. But yeah, you're right. It just that's and now the dog that I have literally lives in our house.
Yeah.
In our house. Now, granted, thankfully, my wife and I are on the same page and that like goes to sleep in the cage. That feels weird. That felt real weird. Is this wrong? Like caging an animal? Like you find out no, it's normal, blah blah. But yeah, I don't know. I think everything has become big business.
Mm-hmm.
Like veterinarians and one of my best friends owns a vet hospital. Not knocking that at all, but like yeah, we get smarter too. Like you know, growing up, we also used to eat shit that we probably shouldn't have eaten.
Yeah.
So it's like we get smarter, we find out new things, and yeah, maybe you shouldn't have your dog outside all winter long. Like, it's okay, yeah, okay, and we know better now. So it's like those things. But I mean, I have a pet insurance on the dog just because I don't want that bill, but I'm also paying $60 a month for a payment that I probably won't even like see a return on for hopefully, God willing, 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
But again, she might also eat something that she shouldn't because that's what dogs do.
Yep. Yep.
Assholes.
They don't know better. Yeah.
They don't. They don't want to.
Well, that's what you're there for.
This looks good. Let's eat this. Eat my daughter's sock. Get a jam in your intestine. That's great. I don't know. But we came here to talk tonight about you, what you've got going on. You're also a podcaster.
Yes, I am.
Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl, I believe is the name.
That is correct. Yeah.
Please tell me about your podcast because as a fellow podcaster, I'm interested to hear about what it is.
So I started Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. It's going to be 4 years this May, and so I started it. I guess it was during the pandemic. It was 2021, I guess. I had
When
the
when
idea.
everyone started a podcast.
Yeah, when everyone started
We
a
all started a
podcast.
podcast. Yep.
Yeah, it was 2021. Yeah,
We're
that's
all the
right.
next Joe Rogan. Yep. Here we go.
Oh, yo. Okay, I'll keep my mouth shut on that
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
But
Okay. All right. I got enough out of that. We're all the
yeah,
next top podcaster.
I'm
What
the next me. Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. No, and honestly, that's not why I started it. I had thought of it for like a year before
I know.
that, and it was like it wasn't the idea, oh, I'm going to be the best of this or the top of this, because believe me, it's hard, and
I'm
it's
making a
not.
joke because I did the same thing.
Yeah. No, I know, but it's like, there's so many out there, so I get it.
Yeah.
Like there's so much noise out there, but I started it in 2021, and it was just like I knew that I wanted it. When I started it, I think my initial idea was that it would be somewhat wine related, although I named it Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl, truly meaning to be I knew I wanted it to amplify the voices of women. I wanted to feature women every week. So the idea of Uncorked was like opening up,
Sure.
like open up, share your stories, about any topic. So there's not a real specific theme. It's other than promoting women. And I've had a couple guys on, and one of the guys actually does a service that's for women, like self-defense. So I typically do keep it to women. But the idea again was just a very casual format, kind of like what you do. I produce it and put it out every Thursday. It's on Apple, Spotify, and a couple small places. But the idea is just like a conversation that's usually 45 minutes. Some are shorter if the person's like not as talkative. Some are a little bit longer. And I like to keep it casual. And I usually like to have an idea. I usually do before going in why I'm having them on. Like, what do they do?
Right.
Like, cause and I want to be careful when I do look for when people say, oh, well, I might have someone for you to be on the podcast. I don't want to be like, well, what does she do? Like, but I kind of want to know if someone's just like, yeah, well, I go to work and I come home and that, you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be like, what do I have you on here talking about?
Right.
So, like tonight I interviewed a person, or I don't even like to say the word interview because I say have conversations with someone who's been on a couple times before, but she is publishing a book and it's coming out in a couple weeks. So I really wanted to focus on that. But there's always, of course, chit chat. Since the last time we talked, I've had women talking about mental health, training for marathons, like you name it, just to have a casual conversation. I've had a couple politicians on, Senator Brown, Representative Bridget Malloy Kazarowski, and again, not to be about issue specific, but getting to know the woman a little bit and getting them to share some insight so that and I've had people tell me that they've listened to a certain conversation and said, you know what, I felt that was for me. I really felt I heard something in that inspired me to do X, Y, or Z. And I love hearing that kind of stuff. That means a lot to me when people tell me first that they listen. That's great.
Yeah. Right.
But it's like, oh, awesome. So I'm not just putting it out into a void. But that they actually felt something from it or connected, or, I had those feelings and I just thought silly about them. But now, like, if it had some kind of influence or impact on a listener, I'm always thrilled to hear that.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it's kind of, why we do it because we love it, right?
Yeah.
But when you hear that one person like, oh, I listened to this episode or whatever it might be, or or whatever it might be, it's like it's rewarding for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But it
I
sounds like
mean,
you've had some like really great guests as far as you know, people running marathons and political figures and things like that. Like that, I always like what I interview a lot of musicians, and I find a lot of joy in that because I feel like if someone listens to their music, it might impact them in a different way. Kind of different, but it's hopefully it kind of translates that way.
yeah.
You're having conversations with like political figures and people that are like making a difference, which is cool.
Well, and that's, I mean, it doesn't always have to be, it could be any person as long as they like, someone who lost her father to suicide, and then
Right.
she started a foundation about, suicide prevention. So it could be anyone in your neighborhood who just happens to be doing something, and
Right.
wants to share, a business owner, an entrepreneur. I had the president of Johnson College on a couple times, Dr. Katie Leonard. I love someone like in a high position, but it could also be, like I said, someone that's, someone who ran their third marathon, just because there's inspiration in that for other
Absolutely.
other people listening. It's like hearing you never know. I mean, that could only appeal to a certain person, a couple, a certain percentage, but that's okay. And it's different every week, the conversation. But like, it is nice to know that some people are listening. And I've had people tell me though that mine like are too heavy or something, because I guess they assume because I'm a comedian, they're just going to be funny. Or
Right.
again, my fault for naming it Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl, that they really aren't about wine.
Yeah.
But I had someone say, "Oh yeah, I listen to yours are too heavy. I like lighter stuff." I'm
Right.
like, I'm sorry. Or my best friend who doesn't listen, and I always tease her and give her shout outs because she doesn't listen, Kristen, because she listens only to like murder podcasts. And I'm like, what do I have to do? Murder someone so that I can
Why is that like a
create.
and I'm going to put it into this category. Why is that like a female thing?
Damned if I know. I say that, and here's the thing: I don't listen to them, but I freely admit that I do watch a lot of the true crime documentaries,
Right.
true crime stories,
It
like
could be
shows.
podcasts, shows, whatever. Like, why is that like
But
a thing?
I don't really know, and it is now a thing where it's like women. Oh, I'm gonna relax and unwind and watch a murder
Right.
show or like
You see
whatever.
memes like, oh, I don't know why my wife is so anxious, but she's hopped up on coffee. She's watching or
Watching murder
Starbucks
shows,
watching
yeah.
murder shows. It's like,
Well, let
yeah,
me tell you the premise or the pretense, which is bullshit. Because again, I'm a Gen X skeptic, but let's face it, it's all about what sells, right? So I think they're packaging these, and even women to women, packaging them like, oh, you can learn from this to keep yourself safe. That's bullshit.
right. No,
It's bullshit.
you need real life experience,
Yeah, and
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 not bad stuff like
no.
classes.
Yeah, well, yeah, and to the point of my friend who has tsunami self defense, learning that way to protect yourself, hearing how a murderer, like, okay, you might hear how, like, okay, Ted Bundy, with his pretend broken arm, like how he lured women or whatever. So you might hear those details, but really, you're not learning how to protect yourself. And that's another, I don't, you'll be like, Jesus, this woman gets pissed about everything. That's another pet peeve of mine, because they're really, to me, people are, and I'm part of the problem because I'm watching the Netflix documentaries. I feel that we're glorifying murderers now.
Yeah,
They're almost becoming celebrities, which
they're
is sick,
hot. They're
really.
hot.
Yeah. Oh, Jeffrey Dahmer, I
Yeah,
mean,
those glasses.
and I'm part of the problem. I'm
Yeah,
watching that crap. So I'm pissed, but I'm also like, I'm yelling at myself in the
yeah.
mirror. What's
Hey,
wrong
T
with you?
Swift. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
Yeah,
You say it's
exactly.
tsunami self defense? Who that
Yes.
guy's what?
Robert Thomas.
Robert. I feel like he's commented on or liked some of my stuff before.
Robert and I, we go back a ways. We actually performed improv. I met him doing improv at Comedy Dojo in Scranton with Chris Barnes, was back in town around 2008, maybe it was. And we've stayed friends, but he's a guy who has a million different hats. And I feel like he is somewhat musical. Um, Sideshow All Stars, I think he's in that, and he does some drumming, but
Maybe that's why
he
he's
could be, yeah, but he has a
interactive with me.
million
Yeah.
hats, and he does self-defense classes, primarily focused for women. He has done mixed classes, but he has a whole crew of young women who work with him, and they teach about prevention, stalking,
Yeah.
being aware, all that, like really good stuff.
This is unfortunate to say, and it bothers me to say it, but I feel like it's like scary to be a woman sometimes. Like, is that accurate? Like,
Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah, and
that
oh my god,
sucks. Like that's like
it does suck. Well, it doesn't suck to be a woman. I'm actually pretty
no, I'm
damn
not saying
proud,
that.
but no, but it does suck to feel scared.
Or, yeah, look over your shoulder when you're going to a
Yeah,
club or whatever. Like,
yeah. And I'm someone, Robert and I have gotten into this too. He's yelled at me for when I was running a lot. Like I often would go by myself because I work for myself as an entrepreneur. I don't have a typical, oh, I'm 9 to 5, whatever. So I would go like when I wanted to. Might be 10 o'clock in the morning, might be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I tend to run by myself. And he'd be like, shake his head. And I again, something that would piss me off. I'm like, well, I'm not changing my lifestyle because of blah blah blah. And it's
Right.
like, okay, but you have to be smart. And I'll admit, I've been dumb about it. I've run without a phone often. I would get often most scared when I'd be running at the state park out in the woods there. And I'd of course work myself up where I'd be thinking I heard gunshots or thinking I heard footsteps. But it can be scary. Even in Scranton on the trail, there have been times when even high school kids are like 18 to 20 were like making comments and I felt uncomfortable and I just got off the trail, got on the street. So I'd be closer to like people. So yeah, it is, it can be scary. Yeah.
How did we get here? I mean, like, as far as we've advanced over the years, right? Like, you think that we would be in a better place, or that at least women would be in a better place, feeling safer, more secure. How do we continue to like fail in that space?
Oh, I don't know if you want to open up this can of worms.
It's open. Just
Well, I should say, I guess I don't know how far down the can you want to go, but I think we're headed in the absolute wrong direction with this. As far as attitudes of men and lack of respect for women, and I think our culture is kind of going backwards to many degrees with that, with incels who think they somehow have a right to women, and if they get rejected, it's like their way of responding is through violence or hatred, and it's like, why don't you grow the fuck up? We've all been rejected and hurt before. Just get over
right.
it and move
Yeah.
on. You're not entitled to anything. Just because you awkwardly asked out a woman or, secretly stalked her and she rejected you, you don't now have this right to, abuse her online, or to follow her or to do anything to her. You're owed nothing. And I think that culture is kind of emerged in the past 10 years, maybe. It was one of my students at King's who actually introduced me to this idea of incels. I'm like, damn, they hate women. Holy shit. Didn't even know about these guys. But we should be a hell of a lot farther, and
Yeah.
we're not. And I don't understand it, quite frankly. I really don't.
Where do you think it comes from? Like, is it a lack of parental guidance? Is it? I mean, I have to, like, as a parent myself, I have to believe that that's where it starts, almost 100%. Like, I mean, I I make it a point to tell my kid to hold the door open for people at wherever we are. Today we were taking a tour of a baseball facility, and I made it a point to like hold him back and allow the mother and her son to go ahead of us. Just a respectful thing to do. Like, I'm not saying I'm a hero, but I'm like, it has to start somewhere. I mean, we're born innocent, right? We
Yeah.
can't we can't argue that. Like, we're easily programmed at a young age. It how do we stop that? Like, how do we? And I don't think we can. I really don't.
Yeah, and I'm sure as I'm sitting here listening and thinking even what I just said, I'm sure there are people out there, like, maybe I shouldn't say it is scary to be a woman because I am empowered, and quite frankly, with all my perimenopausal rage, I sometimes joke that I want them, like, come on, I'll beat the
Yeah.
shit out of you and crack your skull. I have so
Right.
much pent up stuff. But I think there's a lot of things too. There's different culture as far as, I know there have been people out there like they don't want the door held for them, or some people say they're confused about that. to me, and again, it's different, I guess, takes on this depending on your age.
Yeah.
I think it's always respectful to hold the door, but I hold the door for people too.
For
I think
anybody.
that's just common courtesy. But I do agree. I think it is with how you're one, how not only taught, but what is modeled behavior. So does a young man see another man, how he behaves? Do they have that person in their life? Do they see it out in the community? Do they have healthy relationships with men and women? I also believe, this is my belief. I had this conversation today about who do you see that's like a lot of these shootings? It's like a dejected or rejected white male who's pissed
Right.
off. And I'm like, that's why I say grow a pair and just fucking deal with it. But you go to a shopping center and shoot everyone up, or, your ex, because something happened, and before you take yourself out. And I'm always screaming at the news, just take
Right.
yourself out, leave
Yeah.
everyone else out of
I
this.
agree.
Like, I think that's a mental health issue. It's an emotional issue. The idea of learning how to deal with your emotions. Rejection is normal. It is part of life. Deal with it.
Right. But don't you think that like it's a lot of kids and being taught that that's not like it's not normal. It's like everyone's should accept everything, and I think it's a weird. I agree with you 100%. We need to have these hard conversations. It's everyone gets a trophy. Like we're not. I don't think we're like teaching kids that like rejection is part of life. Like that you need to you need to figure out how to manage that, as opposed to like, oh, be pissed about it, be angry about it. Like you have to be able to manage that, like you're saying. Like, and to a degree, I feel like it's. I always say it's a lot of the stuff that we're going through. You talk about like younger generations and all that kind of shit. And it's like all of these things are our fault as parents. You're excluded because you're not a parent. So
But I
good for
should
you.
be held
So good.
accountable as
So
a
good
member
for
of
you. No good.
community.
No good for you though. Like it's but like I see what happens and I'm like, why are we doing this? This doesn't make any sense to me. We're enabling or we're doing these things that aren't teaching lessons. And why are we doing that? Because we don't want to be the bad guy, or what's the reason behind it? And I think it falls a lot on society choosing to not have those hard conversations, or teaching right from wrong and all those things.
Yeah. And how did we get here? This is
I don't know.
a serious conversation, but it's nothing like everything. It's never going to be just as simple as, well, it's this, right? So
Right. It won't.
it's the culture. It's, I remember I'm a Gen Xer. So back in the day, Tipper Gore putting, the warning labels on records, whatever. And it's like, oh, don't do that. And I'm someone that, like, I Grand Theft Auto, you're beating up hookers in that. Like,
Yeah.
I think, and then I don't know what political faction, and I don't care politics wise. To me, if someone, I believe that impacts the brain, regardless of whether a study says it does or doesn't. If someone's allowed to play a game where you're beating up a human and it's a woman, and it's like, oh, okay, well, she doesn't have value because she's a prostitute. That's horrible.
Right.
And if you play that and you allow your kid to, like, if you allow your kid to play that, I do believe those games, the culture, like, that does impact them, especially if they don't have the healthy role model. So I do think it's a whole bunch of things, but, like,
Yeah.
if you don't have the right role model, even having said that, there are people who come from families where there,
Yeah.
maybe it was fine, and they still go off and do something where
Yeah.
it's completely wacko.
I think it's less. I mean, I think it's less. If you had to like, do the data and I feel like it's less. But I remember my parents won't let me watch Bart Simpson, The Simpsons rather, because Bart Simpson said, "Eat my shorts." That's what I lived. I was like, no, no, that's inappropriate. Don't touch your pants like that. Eat my shorts. Not gonna happen. But and well, it's hard though too as a parent. Like the internet is a crazy thing. Like, I mean, we didn't grow up with that. You and I, like,
No.
we're a different age, but I mean, I've lived half my life with internet and half without it at this point, and you're very close. Like, it just they are born and internet is here. It's now. It's they're swiping on iPads without even knowing how to speak yet. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and that one I will hold parents accountable. I used to listen, I haven't listened in a while, to another podcast of the second my I had a glass of wine, so my brain isn't as sharp, but the woman who was on Big Bang Theory,
Haley Kuko.
who played Sheldon's girlfriend. She used to be Blossom, Mayim Bialik.
Oh,
So
okay.
she's actually like incredibly smart in real life, has like a neurophysicist or neuro whatever the hell she is. She's incredibly bright, has a doctorate, and she has a podcast. But she talked about like this study, like when parents are changing their children's diapers and they're trying to get them to like for them to sit still while they change it, whatever, giving them actual iPads at that age as infants. And she said she talked about like the real damage that's done, because that's meant to be a time of connection with your child. And I mean, and she spoke in terms of that I'm not skilled enough or smart enough to talk about the neurological with the brain development, that connection where they need this certain connection with the human
Right.
changing their diaper. And she said you're giving them an iPad to look at. It's not just a matter of bad parenting, it's damaging to their
Right.
brain. So when you see, and then and again, I'm not a parent, and people can be like, well, you don't know what it's like. No, you're right. I don't know what it's like. And it is hard. Okay. But when you're wondering at 5 years old why you can't get them off the iPad, or you're like, don't want to get into the fight, whatever, if they've had it for years, it's not their fault that they're addicted.
Right.
I mean, don't give it to them that young. I mean, already the studies show that younger people have neck problems, and I'm not talking just like babies, I'm talking millennials, Gen Z,
Yeah.
neck issues from looking down,
Right.
eye problems from the screen time. And I mean, hey, as a Gen Xer, I look at the screen too much. I mean, I wear reading glasses, but all these things, and we're all guilty of it.
Yeah.
Social media was built that way. It was built to be addictive, and it is. And spending time, screen time, it's the way it is. It's our culture.
Yeah. I keep praying that something will happen where it might go away. It never will, but I
Well,
I have two young kids, and I'm just hoping. I don't. How do you navigate it? Like, I mean, kids are getting phones earlier and earlier, and the excuse is, well, as a parent, I need to be able to get a hold of them. Yes, fair. They need to get, after school, practice, games, whatever it might be. But there's no need to have like the actual iPhone, the actual computer device in their hands with that ease of access to internet, and it's a trash can.
yeah,
I always say if I wasn't doing this, if I didn't need to be knowledgeable of what was going on in the world around me, as far as like businesses, what they were doing, and things like that, for my full time job is what pays the bills. I would like to get rid of social media, but it's just not a feasible thing.
yeah. And again, had this conversation today about like I argue with some friends who just want to blame, oh, it's social media, and I'm like, well, it is and it isn't, because where did we just decide that we don't have accountability for anything we do in our lives, right?
Yeah,
So it was created. I mean, I watched TED Talks on this. Like, it was when Zuckerberg created Facebook. It was created to be like a casino game, so that you get that dopamine hit, like, oh, I got a like, oh, I got, so that you would stay attracted to it. It's so like we can't beat ourselves up like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? No, it was built that way. It
yeah,
was built to suck us in and keep us there, and we're there. But at some point, and even adults could probably even be worse than kids with this. I know myself. I scroll and go, oh, wow, she's in Spain now. Look at that one. Oh, good for
must be
her.
nice. Yeah.
Oh, and I do the FOMO and I do the
Hmm.
comparison. And then it is up to me to go, that's enough of that, and put it down and stop scrolling. Or if there are people that, trigger you or aggravate you or whatever, unfollow them,
Yeah.
unfriend them. I've snoozed so many people and unfollow in the past year. It's been delightful.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have to put yourself through that, because you're doing that. You
The
don't have
the
to.
thing about people our age, like we can really kind of understand that that's okay. Like we can do those things. I feel like the children that are being introduced to it so early, they don't know. It's like watching reality TV. Like I always say, like when I started watching reality TV, like I was old enough to know that this is not real. Like, but they're grown up. It's like, oh, this is reality TV. I want to be like Kim Kardashian. I don't know
Mm.
any better. Because this is just what I've known since I was 8 or whatever. Great, you should be watching it when you're 8, but you know what I'm saying? It's just like it's just nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. On top of the FOMO for them. I mean, I feel bad. Like I hear from friends of mine who have children, like that's like she's getting off it so much herself because it's seeing like the birthday parties or the parties that her kids, the kids weren't invited to. And you get that
Yeah,
like feeling even worse, which I can't, I'm not judging at all. I can't even imagine that's got to be incredibly hurtful for the kids to be like, oh, I wasn't invited. Why wasn't I invited to that party or, that person's house for
yeah.
something or whatever? Yeah.
It's a different form of bullying without even trying to bully somebody. It's just like you can't even just have your own group of friends that you want to hang out with. Remember us growing up, birthday party was at your house. You invited your 4 friends. You had some pizza. You made some stupid crafts, and that was over. No one else knew about it. No one in the class knew that you had a party. No one else
No one
knew
saw
that.
photos of your birthday
No
cake.
one saw it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just nuts.
But what I will say to that end, and just to bring it back to what we talked about before, like bullying isn't new. The
No,
problem is that it's now intensified because back then I had my feelings hurt. And
sure.
many times there were kids and girls would be especially ruthless. This is one thing that I think girls do better. And by better, I mean, not in a good way,
The
to
worst.
be like the worst. Exactly.
Terrible.
Like I'm going to be her friend today and not nice, be nice to her. We had that. I mean, I had that back in my time too. So
Hmm.
we had hurt feelings, but again, it's just intensified now. It's so much worse on social media, but you come back to how do you manage that? How do you learn to manage your feelings and your emotions? I mean, we've had hurt feelings before. This isn't
Yeah.
new, but
I just feel like it's magnified in that,
yeah,
you know, you go to school and it sucks there, but once you leave there, it's gone. Now it's all the time.
yeah.
And it's
No,
and
that's
how do you
100%. Yeah.
yeah. It's I mean, my wife was I mean, she was I was say bullied, but to a degree, like she was tall, blonde, and skinny. She was, just like, you know, girls hated her because she was tall, blonde, and skinny and attractive. It's that's why I didn't love having a girl, but I'm so like I'm like I hope that girl looks like me. If I have a girl, I hope she looks like me because she'll be hideous. But I also feel bad if she looks like me. So of course she looks like my wife. I'm like, God damn, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna navigate this whole entire space of like internet and social media and other girls and like they're just mean. Girls are mean to each other. I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't get it either because sometimes some women don't grow out of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, yeah.
it's like forever. That's just what you guys do.
Yeah. Well, I will take whatever umbrage to that. Like it's not what we guys do or what we gals do because some of us don't. As someone
Of
who
course, of
is
course.
like, well, no, because people it's kind of like, it takes me back to that Seinfeld too. Oh, cat fight, you know.
Yeah,
There are many women who, for whatever reason, because of their own insecurities, or they're like, oh, she's really doing something. I'm not, and I could be, but why am I not? They don't want to look at their own perhaps failures or whatever, so they don't want to support other women or whatever it is. But I pride myself on actually doing what I say I do, and there are a lot of women who do, but then there are others who don't.
yeah,
But it is seen that way because then it's also used like, oh, women can't get along. Well, no, many of us can, and there are many of us supporting one another so that we can move forward and do things.
and you're definitely one of those. I mean, you're doing it with what the podcasts and the comedy shows and creating a space for everyone to kind of gather and support each other. And so, yeah, that's good. That's great.
Thanks.
There's one last thing. I know it's Tuesday. It's getting late. We
I go to bed.
we Well, I mean, I could keep going, and
I was gonna say I could too, but
I'll
like I really am
I'll
approaching the
hate you
bedside.
tomorrow. You'll hate me tomorrow. So we can wrap it up. But laughter yoga leader. We gotta talk about that, and then we can wrap things up. But uh, again, it's so cool to talk to someone who's so involved with so many different things and things that are like making an impact on people. And it might not seem that big, but like it is. It's creating spaces for people. It's creating laughter. It's creating places for people to talk about you know hard conversations and happy things and all that kind of stuff. I'm interested to see what you have to say about this laughter yoga leader position that you hold.
Yeah, so thank you. I do love having an opportunity to talk about what this means because even though it's been around since about 1995, laughter yoga, there are still like a ton of people that don't know what it is, and it's good to have an opportunity to educate about it. So when I actually worked, my degree is in journalism, and I've worked in marketing, and I worked at a healthcare company. Blue Cross, which is now Highmark Blue Shield. But anyway, when I worked there, they had a reimbursement program. So I was able to earn my master's degree. When I was getting it like one course at a time while I was working full time, and got it from Marywood. And for the research class, I wanted to research something that would be fun for me. So I researched the value of humor and laughter. And that is when I learned about laughter yoga. So that was back when I was getting my degree, about 2005. I was finishing my last semester, 2006, and I had never heard of it before. So I think the nearest workshop for me was at the time Atlantic City. And then years later, I would take another one with the American School of Laughter Yoga in Washington, D.C. They're not in there, but that's where the workshop was. So I took these workshops, and basically the idea is to promote laughter, which of course I already believed in. The research is out there. Don't want to bore you because I could continue to talk about it. But everything from the story of Norman Cousins, which a lot of people might be like, yeah, I don't know that. But when I talk about it, they're like, oh, I think I've heard of that. Written about in the New England Journal of Medicine. So that gave it some credibility. Back in 1976, he wrote about it. He was the editor of the Saturday Review, a person who had a serious connective tissue disorder, had pain, a lot of pain, great deal. And he found that when he laughed, and back then it was Candid Camera, Marx Brothers movies, these are things that he enjoyed that made him laugh. When he laughed like for 15 minutes, really heavily, heartily, he got about 2 hours of pain free sleep because of the endorphins that flow through our body, much like endorphins when we exercise. So that's when the medical community was like, huh, there's something to this laughter. So there continues to be research out of Maryland School of Medicine about how it can help prevent heart attack. It can create healthy blood flow. A Dr. Lee Burke in California talks about how it's good for our immune system and a host of other things. It can help lower our cortisol level, which is our stress hormone. It does things for our brain chemicals, which is good. So there's so many reasons to laugh. And the idea is we could be doing it more. And that's why laughter yoga got started by a gentleman in India. He is a medical doctor, Dr. Kataria. He and his wife both had yoga backgrounds. So that's kind of where the idea for laughter yoga came about. They're like, okay, laughter is so good for us. We know the research. Why aren't we laughing more? And you could say, well, yeah, you laugh at a joke, you laugh at a funny show, whatever, but you don't always belly laugh. I often say I find things funny, and I will literally sometimes go, that's funny. Like
Right.
literally do that.
Yeah.
And it's not often, and I could totally geek out on you here and say there's a book called The Scientific Investigation of Laughter by Robert Provine that talks all about how when we watch TV alone, we don't laugh as heartily as when we laugh with other people. And there's so
Yeah.
much like even research about that. So this Dr. Kataria is like, we need to be laughing more. This is something we can do that's good for us, that's healthy. So he started this movement in like 1995, and he got people together in Mumbai, India. They were getting together as groups. And first he said they were telling jokes, and they're like, okay, now what? None of us are comedians. We've heard these jokes. And so it was he and his wife that said, what if we laugh like a yoga practice? What if we laugh with intention? So we're not laughing in response to a joke or humor. We're just doing it. We're just choosing it like a practice or an activity. So that's how it got started. And so it's literally going, ha, 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 ho, 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 hee, hee, hee. And it's doing a lot of breathing activities. And the deal is, the body internally, the organs and all of our systems, they don't know that it's not quote unquote natural laughter. that we're pretending, that we're simulating it, that it's intentional. The body doesn't know the difference. So the benefits are still real. And the thing with what I do, so when we do this in a group, typically it leads to authentic laughter because you're looking at each other and you're just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we feel silly. And that's the point. It's okay to be silly, childlike, or whatever we want to say. And that's the whole idea, that you're laughing and you could say, oh, I'm laughing at nothing. Yeah, that you're laughing with intention, with the idea that you're going to feel better and you're going to have long-term benefits. So I started in 2006 after I did my research for my graduate degree. My business, Laugh to Live. It's on Facebook. I started this business going out doing laughter workshops, and I've continued that since 2006. I just did it for a group at a church, a group of people in their 60s. It was like a social group. I'm doing it for some school kids in Scranton next week. I'm doing it for some social workers who work with in the mental health field in a couple weeks. So I do it for all kinds of groups because we all can benefit from laughter. And the thing about laughter yoga, and I always like to take this opportunity, when people think of yoga, they're like, oh, is this like you laughing while you're doing downward dog? It's like, no, I don't have that kind of balance. I couldn't be laughing while I'm trying to hold a pose. And then I actually had someone last year say to me, they thought it was laughing at people doing yoga. I'm like, what kind of person are you? Like,
Yeah.
no, we're like, look at their tree
Yeah.
pose. That's
Yeah.
horrible. That rag doll is hideous. You suck. Boo. No, like it's not that at all. It's called yoga because of the connection of the mind, body, spirit, and because of the breath. But as I like to say, because rhymes help people, I say we don't use a yoga mat. You don't need fitness clothes or to even touch your toes, which also makes it very inclusive, which is why I've done it a lot for seniors. I've done it for people who can't even who can't get out of the chair, who you can do it seated, you can do it standing. It's literally about breathing, letting out like a ho, ha, he, laughing, clapping, and just doing that. And the idea is you're getting these great benefits of laughter.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I never even heard that before or considered it or any of that. That's awesome. It's a cool concept.
Yeah, I can't take credit for the concept, just for promoting
But
it.
yeah,
But
yeah, but yeah,
yeah,
overall, it's amazing. I'm sure it's a great benefit too.
yeah. I will say this because again, to circle back, I said at the beginning, I don't know if I'm an extroverted introvert, introverted extrovert. If I was not leading this, would be a skeptic. Totally. Because I still, when I go out, I love to see, this is the observer in me, the sociologist in me, watching how people respond. If I had been when I was working at Blue Cross and someone came in, I'd be looking at my friend to see if they were doing it. Because I'd be like, are you doing this? Like, this is silly. But I can assure you, what keeps me doing it is that even when I start to go, okay, this is kind of silly, every single time I lead it for people, I feel good. And looking out and seeing their faces and how engaged they are and getting their feedback, I know it works. So that kind of reassures me every time I do it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great place to wrap it up.
Okay.
Jeannine Luby, where can people find you online?
They can find me at Laugh to Live on Facebook or Funny Wine Girl Jeannine on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, you can always track me down on LinkedIn, unless you're a stalker or you're trying to sell me insurance. Then please forget my name. But yeah, Jeannine Luby, Luby.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad we did this. You're so well spoken. Your mission, I think, is excellent. And just your overall your personality and love for life and just wanting to be a good person in the world that is unfortunately full of so many shitty people. It's good to have like a beacon of light and just laughter. So thank you for doing what you do and having these conversations on your podcast, and then these yoga classes with the laughter, like that. Just everything you do is just a positive thing, and we need more people like you in the world. So
Oh
thank you
my
for doing what you
gosh.
do.
Thank you. I can be shitty too. So I'm not trying to be,
Well,
I'm
let's
not
just
Mother Teresa, but thank you.
do that on your own time.
Okay. All
Do that
right.
on your own time. But no, seriously, thank you for reaching out to me. I had a wonderful time talking tonight, and hopefully, like I'll catch you out at some point because I do love comedy, and I'll definitely be following you on all those channels and see what you're up to.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've got some local shows coming up. So, yeah, by all means, check them
Yeah,
out.
can't wait.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you very much, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
All right. Take care.
All right, you too.
Bye bye.
See you.